Graphing sine function. Y equals minus 3 sine, open bracket, 2x minus pi over 4, close bracket, minus 1. The sine function, the general equation for a sine function is y equals a sine, open bracket, b x minus c plus d. A is the amplitude, b is the periodic function, and c is the horizontal translation moving along the x-axis, and d is the vertical translation moving up and down along the y-axis. Right, so we got a is minus 3, b is 2, c is pi over 4, and d is minus 1. The amplitude, which is the modulus of a, and this is how you write modulus. A is minus 3, so modulus of minus 3 is 3. Number 2 we need to find is the period. Now the period is 2 pi over b. B is 2 in this case, so 2 pi over b, which is 2 pi over 2 equals pi. So the period is pi. A sine of x has a period of 2 pi. That means that the sine function will repeat every 2 pi. Our function has a period of pi. That means that the period will repeat every pi. The function will repeat every pi, not every 2 pi. The next thing to do is to find the x scale. X scale is period over 4 because every sine function has 4 parts to it. The first part is when you start from 0, go up to maximum, that's part 1. Then go from maximum to 0, part 2. Then from 0 back to minus minimum, part 3. And then from minimum back to 0, part 4. So we have to divide our period by 4, and therefore we have pi. If you divide it by 4, you get pi over 4, which is 45 degrees. The fourth point to look at is the start and the end. Every sine function starts at, in this case, sine of x starts at 0 and finishes at 2 pi. So we need to set ours, because if we set x to 0, that's where it starts, and we set x to 2 pi. We need to set the function here to anything in the bracket here. We don't have x, we have 2x minus 4 pi over 4. So you have to set that to 0 at the start. So you get 2x minus pi over 4 equal to 0, and therefore 2x equals pi over 4, x equals pi over 8. So now, if you work that out in degrees, that's 22.5 degrees. So that's where the function here will start. The function starts at 22.5 degrees, unlike this function here, start at 0. This function will start at 22.5 degrees. And then we add 45 4 times to get to the end. Right, the end function, we need to set 2x minus 4 pi over 4 to 2 pi. So you have to set the function here in the square bracket to 2 pi. That's the end. And therefore you get 2x equals 2 pi minus plus pi over 4. But this is over 1. So 2x equals, I'm going to multiply this by 4 and multiply that by 4. So that will be 8 pi over 4 plus pi over 4. So common denominator, therefore we can add them together. So that will be 9 pi over 4, and that's 2x. Therefore x will be 9 pi over 8, 202.5 degrees. So we start at 22.5 and we end at 202.5 degrees. Number 5 is the vertical translation, and in this case the vertical translation is -1. What that meant is the graph will not start at y equal to 0, because this is y equal to 0. It will start at y equals to -1. That's where the graph will start. Right, so we've got the line draw for the graph. The -a is negative, that's a reflection. What that meant is the graph is actually, instead of having a positive, starting from the positive side, it will be starting from the negative side, and this will be reflected there and that will be reflected here. So that's what that meant, and then it's brought down by -1. So it's going to start from y equals -1, not y equals to 0, and on the negative side, because this is reflected. And that minus pi over 4 means it has been shifted to the right. So that's why we're starting at 22.5. So this is 22.5 here. We're going to start at 22.5. So let's mark the points where we're going to start. Starting at 22.5 on y equals -1, not 0, y equals -1. And then we're adding 45. So each square, the double square there, is 45. So from there to there is 45. So from there to there is 45. So that will be 67.5. So that will be 67.5. And that will be going to the maximum. And the maximum is going to be, well, the amplitude is 3. So you should be getting -3 from 0. And then because you're bringing it down by -1, so it will be going to -4. So that will be -4 there. So we'll be going to -4 there. So 67 is here. So that will be -4. 67.5. Then I'm adding another 45. That would be 45 plus 67.5 would be 112.5. So that would be 112.5. So that would be here. And it will be coming down to the -1 level. Okay, so you start there, coming down, and then it will be going to the negative side of it by 3. So if you count 3, 1, 2, 3, that's what that is. So you have to count 3 down up again. So we're going to next one here. You know, we have to count 3. So it will be 1, 2, 3. So we'll be going to 2 at that point. And this is 157.5. You're adding, don't forget you're adding 45 to each 22 as you go along. So that will be there. And then it will come down to 0 again at, we're going to add 45 to 135.2, 155.57.5. You add 45 to that, and that will be 202. So here is 202. So that's the first period. Right, that's strange, isn't it? Because obviously it's been squashed, and that's what that's doing. That's why you're dividing it by 2. It's been squashed and shifted along to the right, and that's what that's doing. The minus there is making it shift to the right. The 2 is squashing it. So again, drawing this one, do not draw with pen, always draw with pencil, just in case. Right, so that is just going all the way to a maximum there and coming down from a maximum to a minimum. So that will be the first period. So we could do the same thing going back to the left. Let's just do one more going back to the right. So we got that. Now next thing is going to come down from there. It's going to come down to here, which is the maximum here again, because we're adding 45 every time. And then another 45 takes it to 0. And then another 45 takes it to the top here. Another 45 will bring it back down to that one here. So now let's just put that in. So obviously that's a minimum there. That's a maximum there. And I want to come down to join the minimum. And I want to go up to join the maximum. So going through there. And then I want to come down back to join the... So that's 2 periods plotted. 45 is pi over 4. I can turn into 2 pi over 8. Just to make it look the same denominator as the starting point. So the starting point here is, if I could just put it here, the starting point here is pi over 8. And I'm adding 2 pi over 8. So this point here will be 3 pi over 8. You can see I had to change that to the same denominator, so it's easier to add them together. Pi plus 2 pi is 3 pi. The next one will be another 2 pi, will be 5 pi over 8, because that was 3 pi, then add 5 pi. And then another one is, another 2 pi will be 7 pi over 8. And this will be 9 pi over 8. You can see the start was pi over 8 and the finish was 9 pi over 8, which is 202.5 degrees. So it's pretty straightforward. And then you add another 2 pi if you want to carry on, so that would be 11 pi over 8. This will be 13 pi over 8. Another 2 pi to that one there, 15 pi over 8, and the final one here plus 2, so that'll be 17 pi over 8. So we had a reflection. It could have started from there, but because it's negative, it was a reflection. All the positive became negative and all the negative became positive. And then the graph could go back the other way, 22.5 degrees. That meant that we'll be going, adding 45, we'll take it to 22.5 minus 22.5. So, and that will be, because it's here, we'll be going to the top here. So that'll be minus 22.5.